I'm John Law, this is Chasing Cars, and we're finally getting to drive the 6th generation Subaru Forester. It's been a long time coming after it launched in late 2023 in North America. We got a little early taste just outside of Sydney, you may have seen that video, but today is the first time we've driven the new Forester in depth. And we've taken in some proper testing roads, some testing country tarmac, dirt roads, and even muddy tracks to test out the four-wheel drive system to see on first taste if the new Forester is any good. And a recap on what's changed. It's got the Subaru Global platform underneath it, increasing body rigidity by 10%. It's also bigger in every dimension, plus there's more sound deadening inside. And of course, the headline figures, there's now a strong hybrid, as Subaru's calling it, under the bonnet of certain models. It adds between $3,000 and $6,000 to the price and drops fuel consumption to 6.2 litres per 100 Ks, increases range to 1,000 Ks from a tank, and all of that comes at the cost of a spare tyre. In today's video, we're going to ask two questions. Firstly, where does the new Forester sit among its rivals? And secondly, if you're a current Forester owner or are considering buying one, should you wait for the new car? Leave your comments down below, hit subscribe to the Chasing Cars YouTube channel if you haven't done so already, and let's get into it. Chasing Cars, honest reviews of your next car. Brought to you by Budget Direct. First, let's talk about price, because Subaru has been a tad optimistic in pricing the new Forester, at least in my opinion. It's nearly $5,000 more than the car it replaces in base all-wheel drive, guys, and a hybrid costs $3,000 more than that. And in the popular trims, like the upper specs, we have a Touring here. This is $55,990, and that's before on-road costs, and that brings this car above the Toyota RAV4 Cruiser, which has a similar amount of specification. Subaru will of course tell you that there's more off-road technology and more capability in the Forester, but that's going to be something that the market's going to have to judge when it arrives. Talk about styling as well, because I think the new Forester is quite a handsome development on the formula. It hasn't thrown the baby out with the bathwater. It still looks very much like a Forester. Huge glass house, little off-road looking wheels, and a nice chunky front end with a little bit of extra presence through the side. And as a bonus, there are actually functional vents because Subaru has been very busy honing the aerodynamics of its midsize SUV. Inside, you'll be instantly familiar with the new Forester if you spent any time in an Outback or a Crosstrek, because it is based on the same platform and therefore has the same kind of technology suite as you'll see in those cars. Nice large portrait-oriented touchscreen, and for the first time in a Forester, we're getting a full digital driver's display in hybrid models that are Sport and this top-spec Touring. Now, a little word on material quality to start with, because it feels very much like a continuation of the Forester line. You've got scratchy up here above the touchscreen and also on the cowl in front of the driver, but there's soft, squishy muffin tops all around the rest of the cabin. You've just got a nice, comfortable armrest, which is not a leather material. It's sort of like a technical outdoorsy material, which is kind of cool. The seats have leather upholstery on them in this top spec model, and they've got this sort of suede cloth accenting on the side. They're also power adjustable, so pretty comfortable, pretty nice. One of the great things that has been retained in the new Forester are thin by modern standards A-pillars and a huge glass house. I have this massive front window, I'm set high, and I have a great view out over the bonnet. Plus these side windows are huge, and we'll come back to that again in the back, but it really remains one of the Forester's party pieces. Technology is pretty good. The touchscreen isn't super responsive. It's not quite best in class, but it's decent enough, and Subaru's also been tweaking things over time to put a lot of useful shortcut and physical buttons for this screen. So you've got temperature controls here, you've got fan speed, heating and ventilation for the top spec model. Of course, this is also the first time a Forester gets ventilated seats, which is great to see for the Australian market. Wireless Apple CarPlay, wireless phone charger that your phone slides out of all the time, two cup holders here, really nice generous center bin with a little bit of flock lining down the bottom, and pretty generous door bins finish off the practicalities in here. And touch points, we come back to the regular ones like the steering wheel. It's got nice leather upholstery on it, brown stitching in the top spec. It feels good in here, but at $55,990 before on-road costs, I don't know if it's entirely justified in that price. A lot of the materials feel mid-spec, and for that reason, I'd recommend having a look at lower spec Foresters, even if you're looking at the Touring, because even the base all-wheel drive hybrid feels pretty nice inside with its heated cloth seats. But more on that when we get back to Australia. For now, I think this is a very fit-for-purpose Forester interior. The Forester's backseat has always been one of its strongest points, and that continues in the new car. You've got really nice wide opening doors with big apertures that would make it easy to load bags or child seats into the back here. Plus you've got excellent visibility out. I'm set high on this bench. I've got a bit of a stadium arrangement over the front seats in front of me, and Subaru knew that that was one of the strong points of the Forester, so they've actually narrowed the front seats and given them smaller headrests. You might not think you'd notice that, but actually you really do. I've got even better visibility out, plus these huge side windows that are just massive. It's so good, so airy. Best car for playing I Spy in, hands down. Space is also pretty good. I'm 188 centimeters tall. This is my driving position. I've got lots of legroom, good amount of tow room, and just a little bit of headroom under this panoramic sunroof, which is standard in this car and the Hybrid Sport below. But it's not all perfect back here. The bench is a little bit harder than I remember it being, and the backrest doesn't have any reclinable adjustment that I can figure out, unlike a lot of rivals in this class like the Volkswagen Tiguan. Plus, even though this is the top spec car and you get heating and ventilation in the front seats, the backseat passengers don't get heating and ventilation. They don't even get heating. So you're stuck with the slightly cold leather on this 2-degree day here in New Zealand. Material quality back here goes to hard on top of the doors as well, which is a little bit cheap. Plus the armrest isn't exactly the most comfortable. At least you do get a reasonably sized door bottle in the bins and an armrest that you can pull down in the center here with 2 more cup holders, plus the 2 air vents that you get here, which are really easy to access and adjust. Time for the controversial bit, the boot. As you possibly know already, the Subaru Forester Hybrid is not equipped with a spare tyre of any sort, no temporary space saver, no full size, and that's a big shame for Subaru buyers who love the idea that their car comes with a full size spare for safety and mobility. A tyre repair kit just doesn't cut it when you're hundreds of Ks from a major town. It's not really good enough. You can still get the petrol, which does get a full-size spare, but I'd love to see Subaru come up with a really good solution here. You can get some. There will be a tow hitch mounted spare offered, and there's also a solution that Subaru is working on with ARB, but we haven't seen what that looks like just yet. I'd love to hear your thoughts on a full-size spare in the comment section down below too. And let's get into the rest of the boot, because the other bits of it aren't too bad. You've got these nice little flourishes of plastic texturing around the place, around here on the little garnish, and also the tailgate. They look nice. Space is also pretty good, 484 litres with all seats up. It's a little bit better in the petrol. So if you've got your snow chains in the boot, there's nowhere to store them and they'll just end up sliding around. You do have remote tabs to drop the rear seats, and they're power actuated as well, which is nice to see. 12-volt socket, a couple of shopping bag hooks, and a power tailgate on this top spec model. Let's talk about running costs, because the Subaru Forester Hybrid should cut them. Fuel consumption compared to the petrol falls to 6.2 litres per 100 Ks, but in the real world, we saw more like 7.5 litres per 100 Ks in driving yesterday. We'll have to wait to get this car back to Sydney for a proper test loop to see what it's like compared to other cars we've driven, but on the surface, it doesn't save that much fuel, especially considering petrol cars were getting 8.5 litres per 100 Ks on the same loop yesterday. The Forester still accepts 91 RON regular unleaded petrol though, which is a nice touch. Servicing is due every 12 months or 15,000 Ks and will cost you $2,299 for 5 years, which is pretty reasonable, and there's a 5-year unlimited kilometre warranty. So our first drive on the public road in the Subaru Forester, and I think if I was to give an executive overview, it is that it is still very much a Subaru Forester. It has the same kind of steering feel, the same ride feel, and the same level of acceleration of Foresters we know, and a lot of you probably love. That means it's not very fast, and I think that's okay. The petrol-only model develops 136 kilowatts and 247 newton meters, and the hybrid we're in uses that same petrol engine, but running an Atkinson cycle, Miller cycle, and adds a 90 kilowatt electric motor ahead of the transmission to get 145 kilowatts combined. Subaru doesn't quote a combined torque figure, but it doesn't feel any more than 280 or 300 newton meters. It's not a really fast car. Plus, the electric motor doesn't do as much work as what you'd find in something like a Toyota RAV4 or a Nissan X-Trail e-Power for that matter, which is all electric. The Forester Hybrid can get you up to speeds of about 30 Ks an hour on electric only, and from then on the 2.5 litre petrol engine kicks in and does the bulk of the work. It is a lot quieter than older Foresters. It's not quite as thrashy and loud, this 2.5 litre engine, and it fades into the background pretty well. Crucially, when you're rolling along a country road like I am now, you don't feel wanting for more power. It's only when you're doing maneuvers like overtaking or merging onto freeway on-ramps where you sometimes think, oh, I wouldn't mind a car that's a little bit faster, but it's not offensive. It feels about 10 seconds 0 to 100 k's an hour. That we'll be able to time that when we get back home. So drivetrain out of the way, the hybrid system is seamless. You don't have to adjust your driving style. The eCVT, which is a planetary gear set that works with the motor generator to modulate revs, seems to work pretty well. I'll give you a flat out acceleration now. You've got 2 drive modes for the engine as well. You've got S and I, being sport and intelligent. And yeah, sport firms up throttle response and also gives you slightly more revs, like it holds onto revs for a little bit longer in the engine. It is a little bit transformative, but not majorly. While we're on the subject of drive modes, I'll just discuss X mode as well, because it's been refined for this car. And in the top spec touring, you've got 3 modes. You've got snow and dirt, you've got normal, and you've got deep mud and deep snow. Deep mud and snow wasn't really used on our trip because even though we had a little bit of mud, it wasn't the sort of stuff that you really need to cut through to get to the hard. We took on a couple of tricky little tracks actually. The approach and departure angles are pretty good for a medium SUV, and also ground clearance of 220 mil is also very impressive for a regular mid-size SUV. And the Forester really walked over a lot of quite technical terrain that we encountered. The sort of stuff that you'd easily do in a dual cab ute, but you definitely think twice in some of the river crossings and those sorts of things if you're in something like a Toyota RAV4, and if you're in a sedan, you probably wouldn't attempt it unless you really hated that car. Talk about the chassis as well, because ride quality is a big thing for Forester owners. It's a car that was always soft, especially in the rear end. Lots of float, lacking rebound control in the rear end, but that meant it was a comfortable ride, and that comfort has stayed very much intact. Driving along a slightly lumpy road here, and you can see it, the car is tracking straight and true over this. It's not finding bumps that aren't there. The steering is also that much more precise. It's got the new dual pinion steering rack from the WRX, and it's really calm. You're not putting in constant adjustments, and you can feel that this car is definitely more rigid than the Forester it replaces, because you can't see the dash shaking around when you go over bumps. So that's all good stuff. The steering really does make quite a big difference. I will also touch on the hybrid sport grade as well, because it gets a very different chassis setup to the touring I'm in here. The touring is lovely, and actually all the petrols and the tourings, they ride very nicely. I think the hybrid system adds about 80 kilos, so they all have a slightly different setup, but the sport gets, well, as you might expect, a sportier suspension tune. So stiffer, more direct steering, and you also get firmer dampers and more anti-roll bar resistance. So all of those things add up to a car that then doesn't really drive like you expect of a Forester, to be honest. It's quite sharp and it goes around corners nicely. We didn't get a hugely extended drive in that car, but hopefully we'll get a bit more time to sample the Forester Sport in the future. But I think on balance, what you're gonna want is something like the Touring, a little bit more expensive, a little softer edged, or even the base model all-wheel drive on its 18-inch alloys. That is a really nice, comfortable car. Sound deadening is also much improved in this car. Subaru says there's 40% more sound deadening in the roof materials, I think that's the number. And then actually out on the road, it's a fairly pleasant, quiet place to be. Certainly more so than the old car, which could be a bit cacophonous. There is a quantified number as well, 12.5% greater conversation clarity in the back seat and 3.5% in the front seat. And those two numbers are just so like Subaru Japanese engineering numbers. So they do translate to the real world, where the Forester feels nice, comfortable, airy, easy, breezy, little slow, but comfortable, great visibility. So it really doesn't stray very far from the Forester recipe at all. In the hybrid mode, it's very familiar indeed. Safety systems are also improved with Subaru's latest eyesight technology. We've got driver attention monitoring, which I found to be quite annoying when I was driving, especially with polarized sunglasses for the hugely glary sun we have here in New Zealand. Yeah, it didn't really want to recognize me too well. I had to turn that off. Lane keep assist was also a little bit on the average side, a little bit busy, but I did find adaptive cruise control in initial testing to be quite good. It followed at a reasonable distance, it wasn't super far back. And aside from those slight niggles, which I'm sure can be updated in a dealer update, I think the Subaru Forester generally feels much more polished, consistent, cohesive, and well pigeonholed compared to a lot of other newer competitors. And I think that's going to be this car's strength. It just works. It gives you exactly what you expect from a Subaru Forester, a little bit of capability, a little bit of dependability, and it's not groundbreaking, and it doesn't have to be. I would like to see Subaru continue to work on a few little bits of calibration though, specifically when it comes to the brake pedal, which is a little bit squishy, soft and grabby just off the top, and I found that the throttle pedal in the hybrid seemed artificially sensitive to give you a greater feeling of speed, though it wasn't really backed up by any meat to the pace of this car, because at the end of the day, 145 kilowatts and 1.7 tons is never going to make a fast car. So the first verdict on the new Subaru Forester: it's dependable, capable, spacious and slow. All things you expect from a Subaru Forester. Feels like a lovely development of the platform and the nameplate, but it certainly doesn't change the game. There's more tech, but not groundbreaking levels of tech. That might be just perfect for you, but with new competitors coming from all angles, especially China and the off-road capable JQ J7, which may not be as polished and family friendly as the Forester, but is a lot cheaper, this car's life is going to get a lot harder in the coming months and years. Let me know your thoughts in the comments section below. We're very keen to get one of these back in Sydney for a full-fledged comparison against rivals, so make sure you hit subscribe to the YouTube channel so you don't miss that. And as always, thank you very much for watching.